I will call this August 1st meeting of the Chelmsford Select Board to order. This is a work session on goals. Why don't we open with the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So unless anybody has a different idea of how you want to approach this, I thought we would just do similar to what we did last year. I can record just basic ideas everybody has, and then we can look at it, see what we've got and what we want to do with them. I provided two things for reference. The red marker up there is just a reminder of what the fiscal year 22 goals were, in case you think there's more to do on any of those. And then I also passed out the general categories that we evaluate every year, in case there's something there that you would like to reduce to a goal if you feel that we need more visibility or need to work on something. Okay, so I'm going to go scribe. So do we want to start with just ideas people have, and I'll capture them like we did before? Does that make sense?
How about if we first go over last year's and see if there's any we want to carry over? So I mean, either way, I guess is okay.
We can, sure.
Because those would be pretty quick, without an explanation. We know what the explanation is for them, I think.
So that it'll be the candidate list. Anything we do is a candidate, right? Sewer.
It's a candidate.
What about the sewer?
Well, we need a, go ahead.
I was going to say finalize the sewer approach and policy until current capacity restraints are resolved.
Do we have any legal advice yet? No?
It's still ongoing.
Okay. I will have a lot
Mark,
to
will
do
you
with
repeat
it.
that?
I can't.
Oh, you're just shooting off the
I
top.
just said finalize a sewer approach and policy until current capacity constraints are resolved. And I have some sub-bullets, which would be to create a town buffer, kind of what we've talked about for capacity. Make sure we have proper controls in place to not let anything occur that could be detrimental. And then, policy, some kind of a policy for variances.
Are we okay if I just capture the
Yeah, that's fine.
goal for now?
And
But that's what I
and that's,
Measurements later when
yeah. But the second part of that is, that's, to me, I read that as dealing with the situation we're in now.
okay.
But maybe we could also come up with some type of a short and long-term possible solution list. Because we definitely have to solve that. You can't keep going with the policy in place. We have to have some sort of solution 2 or 5 years down the road here.
We had something like the short, mid, long term.
Yeah. This was definitely short to mid is what I was talking about.
And if none of those are viable, we have to have a long,
Okay.
Grinder pump, using the grinder pump, people, that's an alternative.
Is that a goal or is that an approach to meet one of these
It's an
goals?
approach, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So can we hold that thought?
Sure can.
All right. Anything more on the sewer? Okay, anything more on Warren Pole this year?
we keep it, right?
Yeah,
Is
we
that-
don't,
Keep that?
we don't have the conservation restriction yet.
Still keep tracking it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that should be like a minor.
So it's this, yeah, it's a minor
Track.
goal, but it's the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
That track plan to completion. I think we're gonna have a few of those.
Fire stations?
Yeah.
So that's to keep tracking the committee progress and support it as needed or whatever.
Yeah.
right?
And any support the committee needs.
I'm sorry, Ken, what?
In the support the committee needs, I mean, that, I guess is the real meat to it is the committee's doing the work, but
Yep.
the town manager goal should be to support them with whatever they need.
PFAS, that's gonna keep going, right?
Yeah, kind of same thing as Warren Poll, I think. Track to plan.
ARPA?
I've got a couple. One is I think we should have some kind of goal to place X percent, like 75% of the money that we have allocated, to place those into orders by a certain date, and 100% by a second date. And I'd even suggest by, end of, to me, it's a goal,
Okay.
because all we have is ARPA.
Let me
We don't
capture
have
that.
anything about it.
So
Even if you said place 75% of the
you're saying
allocated
ARPA
money.
X percentage or number of projects?
By Y date.
Yeah. By X.
But that had two pieces, right? It had the
Yeah, I was
it had
gonna
the
s-
procurement and the completion. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
I was actually just trying to say procurement placed, because the 2024 is the date when everything has to be placed by. 2026 is when it has to be done by, so trying to get the place done. Unless there's
Okay.
Not to be a
other ideas.
stickler, but you can't use the same variable twice in a formula. You gotta have Y at the, should be by Y. Not to be quirky, but
This is algebra
Okay.
background.
What else on ARPA? Something about the reporting, or do you think this will drive us there?
Yeah, algebra.
I mean, I find the reporting updates are helpful. But I guess they would show themselves in that report.
But the timing too, Paul, do we have to decide what else we want to allocate by next year, by this end of this fiscal year?
Until December of 2024.
Yeah.
So I'll just put a couple sub-bullets here. Reporting. And I'll just say other allocations, just so we don't forget it. And it's December of 2024. Does that cover ARPA so far? Okay. COVID recurrence, we good with that? I don't see anything to carry over.
Mm-mm.
The minutes policy, I think we're okay there. We had 3 on infrastructure, the transportation, which was last year it was the listening session for roads, sidewalks, bicycles, whatever. And then the second part of that goal was the roads and getting a plan in place, so that was the pavement plan, is how that materialized. And then the third part of that was the compliance with the DEP consent orders for the Southwell pump station. So this part, I think, is gone. And we've got sewer up here. So,
I think the roads are still a goal.
okay,
Yeah, I've got it a little different than what we had. I was thinking more like a master roads and sidewalk plan in priority order to be followed and updated. So to establish one that has everything in order.
We do have one.
Yeah, I thought we had one.
Well,
don't have a
we don't
sidewalk
have a
plan yet.
sidewalk one.
Not a sidewalk.
And the
and the road
roads
one
one,
is fungible, I think.
exactly. I think it needs to be a little bit more precise and updated as things change.
Right.
Because things can change.
Right.
And so it needs to be updated, but we need to continue, it needs to be more transparent as to what's going on and what roads are according to the plan and the analysis, as opposed to the phone ringing.
So if one is the master road plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Master road improvement plan. and execution? Is that what you said, Mark?
Yeah, and it's definitely going to change. And on the sidewalk, it's the same thing, and then making sure that we get,
The second was the same with the sidewalks.
and making sure that we get input from the schools. And if there's accessibility issues, that we get input from that committee as well.
Like the ADA.
Exactly.
The Commission on Disabilities. Any other comments on what's on here so far? Okay, so next from last year was cyber vigilance. I know we're gonna keep going with that. Does it need to be translated to a role? Cyber vigilance? My vote would be no. I think it's something that
It's-
Paul needs to go
You're-
work with IT and.
You're hitting the mic with your shoulder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Keep forgetting we're. Cyber vigilance, is that anything that we think needs to be,
I agree. I think it's understood.
okay? The succession plan,
I think with the funding of that grant, that did a nice job there. So that was a good idea, Mark.
Yeah, I think that's just an annual update type thing. I don't think it has to be a goal.
okay? The town common,
Yeah.
I think that seems pretty straightforward right now.
Still a goal or no?
Do we carry, well, do we carry it as a goal, or do we carry the actions in our meetings? I mean,
I'm torn on it because I know the listening session identified those handful of items, but just because residents didn't show up and say something, or committees and boards, does it mean that we shouldn't be more proactive about it and then kind of take it upon ourselves, or make it a goal to do something about it, or do we just, because nobody complained, we leave it as is?
Well, I didn't think we were going to do nothing about it. I thought that's why we had those list of tasks that came out at our last meeting.
I mean, they
Or
do, but I
assigned.
didn't know if we would go further, like, have people really get together and say, what do you vision for a center?
Yeah, I mean, I sent out messages today to the tree committee about the goals, about the tree planting and the tree conditions on the common, and then the Center Village committee. I copied you on the, about the greens, flags, and the bench and all that stuff. So I'm trying to use that list to reach
Right,
out.
I'm just saying, do we want to formalize that as a goal, or are we just going to say whatever comes out of it, comes out of it?
I can put it down for now, we can decide.
Yeah, I mean, it can be removed, I'm just saying that,
So it's really the town common improvement execution, right? Following the listening session and whatever else we might come up with. Is that?
Mark's pursing his lips. You have something to add?
No, it's kind of a higher order thought about all this stuff, but we can do that later.
I mean, we're gonna meet, excuse me, I mean, is that, we're gonna meet with, frequently?
Yeah, I copied you on two requests, one with the tree committee, and I asked for a site visit on the common with the committee to look at the trees and talk about a plan, and then I copied you on it because I know you wanted to be
Yeah.
involved, and then liaison to the tree committee was Ken, so you're on that email, and then the one
When
for
did
this,
those go out?
an hour or two ago.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I didn't see
And
them.
then one
so-
went, and then when the other one was the Center Village, I copied Mark on because he was on the Center Village liaison, and then I copied George on the other one about having a meeting, or same thing, when they can meet and attend their meeting.
I think the big thing with the Center Town Hall thing was the walkway. Well,
Yeah, that's
because
before Traffic Safety Committee right
I
now.
think that's where it probably should start.
Yep,
You
that's
know
where
what
it
I
is.
mean?
Yep, and we'll report back here.
And then, kind of put everything else in place, because there is an existing one that's like one, I think, that's down the road a little bit, that's, whatever, I'm just, I kind of paid attention to change, when I went down there, so.
Okay. And the last one was policies. I can't think of any policy updates that we need to make.
You omitted 2 goals from the list from last year. One was resident communication. I think you just passed over. It was number 8.
Yeah.
Not saying we need a goal, but I'm just saying.
No, thank you.
Okay, all right.
What else did I omit, Paul?
Number 11, growth strategy.
That was that this one?
No, that was the one that the board tabled, the.
Oh, growth
work-
strategy, yeah,
yeah.
we eliminated it, that's why I didn't put it on, but.
All right, okay, I didn't know if that was a temporary elimination or a permanent one. Okay, well, anyway.
Difficult one to do without
I'll just
knowing
put
where
a
we're
line
going with
through
the
it.
sewer, I think. yeah.
Because we eliminated it. Okay, anything else from last year's list?
No, just as a side note, well, we'll come back to them. Good. Mhm.
How about any new ones that we want to discussion?
Well, I'll throw one out there since everybody's speaking at once. We've commented a couple times about the Economic Development Commission, and it hasn't met in over a year. I think we either need to rejuvenate that or eliminate it, and I think it should be at least, call the members together and with Lisa and see if there's something that they can help Lisa with, because I know she does so much, she does all these ribbon cuttings, and she's always reaching out to so many agencies and, different officials around the area. I think there might be something that they could help with, and I think it might be a good idea maybe to jumpstart that. I mean, I don't know the reason they haven't been meeting, if it's, whatever members are on that commission, and maybe if that's the situation, then there need to be new people appointed to it.
And when they were meeting before, it was getting status reports from Lisa. I didn't see them like actively doing much.
Well, I think they could be more active in like I said, in
I'll
helping.
I'll capture the idea.
Okay.
Are you on that committee? On the Economic Development Committee?
Was that what?
Are you on the Economic Development Committee?
Liaison? I think I
Is it the
am.
He's the
Master
liaison.
Plan Committee, or is that what it is?
Both. Both.
Does anybody else want to fill it out? I have some too.
Yeah, I've got one that's kind of around that, but it's a little higher, and it may be, I got a few here that are a little bit conceptual, if you will. But, for all the committees, at least, that we have, boards and committees, and it doesn't have to be all of them, it can be just some of them. Would it be helpful if there was some kind of a process here where they provide us at the end of the year with their couple of accomplishments that they've done, and maybe also set a goal or 2 or 3 for the year, so that we know what they're doing and we know what they've done? Because if, to Pat's point, if nothing's happening, then the real question is why do we even have it? And I'm a little bit, I think when we talked about the listening session that we had on the town common, et cetera, we kind of pushed everything out to the committees, and now Paul's going to chase them around and so forth. But, maybe this would be, part of that, where some of that information would come out and they'd adopt some of those things and report back even quarterly in writing, in person, in some form, so that we know what's going on.
Every committee is invited to submit something to the annual town report every year, and many of them do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to find out what's going on, because, if we have, I was counting today, and we have, 30 committees, appointed committees. If we had even, 2 or 3 every meeting, that would, I don't know,
No, I'm not suggesting that. I suggested some of the more key committees, if it makes any sense. It just,
So
it feels like there's not a good tie-in.
So the flip side of that, in my opinion, is these are volunteers.
Hmm?
I think we have to be careful about making it too onerous for people to volunteer. And I also think we have liaison assignments to every single major committee that we've identified as a board, and it's up to us to go roll up our sleeves and work with the committees, and it's up to us to bring that back to the board.
Yeah,
through our-
I don't see it that way at all. I don't. I think the committees are there, they've signed up to do something, just like us. The only difference between us and them is we got elected.
What do you
They
think
volunteered.
What do you think your liaison role is then?
My liaison role is to be available to those committees in the event that they need additional support to accomplish what they're trying to do. Worked out that way with Roberts Field, it's worked out that way. Recycling just keeps me up to
I
date.
think that's what I said, but it's.
Yeah, but it's not me getting, excuse me, let me finish.
Yeah.
It's not me interfering. It's me making sure that I'm available to them to run, add support and so forth to them, not to take it over.
I agree.
Okay, rolling up my sleeves sounds like taking it over. It's not, you need to let the people that ask to be on that to do their thing.
Let me just.
In my opinion.
All right, so let me restate it. If we're doing our job as liaisons, and we are available to the committees, and we're checking in with them, maybe we're going to an occasional meeting, and we're bringing the awareness of important things back to this board, in my opinion, that is part of our role. So then the question becomes, how much reporting and other things do you want to put structure around all the committees to be
No,
able to
that's-
put?
So,
I
no,
can
hold on.
capture it.
It may not be that we
So-
do it that way. I'm
No, I
just
see what, I
saying.
see, I'm listening to both of you, right?
I
And
can
so,
see- yeah.
what, I go to, let's say, tree committee. You listen to the meetings, I
Yeah.
sit in the corner, I'm quiet. When it's over, I leave. I don't come and give an update, because there's really nothing that, they might be talking about counting trees in town or doing whatever. I go to historic commission, and they're gonna vote for a demolition. I'm not gonna come back and report that. But if someone in that group says, can you do us a favor, can you reach out to the town manager? We need help on X, I'll reach out to Paul.
Right.
If, now, in those committees,
Or when
I don't think what
or
Mark
like
is
when
saying
the
is-
Energy Committee said, we want to
Right.
provide update.
I don't think
but-
Mark is saying let's have those committees come in, but
Okay.
No.
would it be interesting to have a review of, a year in review and a future goal setting from the finance committee? That might be interesting. Would it be interesting, or some type of a conversation? But it goes back to the growth strategy where we're together and we're talking with them,
I know.
and we're all as board sharing where we're going as a town. Because, Paul, you can laugh, but I don't know how many times I've heard from Evan, the boards in this town aren't on the same page, and we could help each other, but we don't, and that's, I think, where that growth strategy came from. And I think if you go down, and maybe I started the wrong one with the finance, but maybe as you look down at some of these other boards, I mean, you don't need to be in here giving updates and reviews if it's an administrative type board that they're doing hearings and things like that. But if they're working with projections of changing the town and striving to accomplish something, then yeah, maybe that is a board that you'd want to have a goal or an update from. And to some extent, maybe it does fall down on us, because I know I almost never give a report.
Yeah. I first heard it as have the committees report to us.
No,
But what
have them-
what you're saying, I think, is a way to improve committee collaboration and communication.
I'd like to hear what they'd like to, maybe they don't have any goals, certain ones don't. For this year, there's nothing really going on, but maybe there are some things, and, so that we are kind of aware of what they're working on. Because I think sometimes, I know I'm not aware of what some of the other committees are working on, so, I don't want to step on their toes either, because they should be empowered to do what they're theirs to do, and to let us know, let their liaison know if they need help, that's all.
And we do have a policy about what the liaison's responsibilities are regarding the committees that they work with. So, I don't think we should go beyond that and get, like Ken said, you sit there and you listen to what they say, and unless they ask you a question, unless it's something really
Yeah, that's,
compelling that I feel like they're going down the wrong path or something, then I will speak up, but otherwise,
Right.
I
Yeah.
let them handle it the way they feel like they should handle it.
Does this capture the essence of it?
yeah, maybe,
Okay.
it's general enough, sure.
Can I throw one out?
Sure.
I think that we need to improve our legislative strategy and posture and our relationships with our legislators.
That should be not a town manager, that should be a select board and town
I
manager.
think it's all 6 of us.
I agree.
Does anybody need me to say anything more?
No?
No.
I mean, I'll
I
go a
just
little further than
crossed it
that. I
off my
mean,
list.
after talking to some of the state reps individually, I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't reach out more. So I think you're 100% right by putting that goal.
Hey, does somebody else have one they want to throw?
Yeah, back to one that fell off maybe. Develop and institute a town strategy for growth and priorities. Reinstitute joint board meetings to accomplish it. So going to what Ken was saying, going to what Paul brought up last year, I don't think we should drop that. I think we need to, start to put something together that discusses, what we want for growth, what we want
Institute
for.
what, Mark?
Excuse me?
Town growth strategy?
Yeah, develop and institute a town strategy for growth and priorities.
Push back?
I'm sorry.
She wants to play devil's advocate.
Oh, yeah, no, whatever. I thought we were just putting stuff down.
We
so-
are. I guess I'd add one
Okay,
then for a candidate. I would delete the state phrase. We don't have a town strategy, period.
that's what the.
It's not just growth.
Development is for.
But in my opinion, it's not just, I don't know what growth, growth last year was tied to economic growth and development and planning and giving Evan and the planning board, working with the planning board. But having a strategic plan for the town is bigger than this, I think. That's why we took this off last year, was because we thought we were gonna be heading down.
Well,
I'm just, I'm
honestly,
gonna catch a bow.
I never understood why we took it off, so, to be honest with you.
Okay,
Can I go in the weeds?
yeah.
What about, can we,
Is it a goal?
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it's too small of a definition of a goal, or it gets stuck into something more. I was asked about a recreation director, and I'm wondering, and I thought about that, and I said, well, I'm not hiring somebody, but I was wondering if maybe there was a way to, find someone else in town that, like a teacher during the summer, offer a stipend, or find somebody in town that's already kind of doing the job and round it out, or, I don't know, but this keeps coming up, and I'm just wondering if there's a different creative way to solve the problem, or if you even need one, but a town the size,
Is the goal for a recreation director, or is the goal to look at how we're managing parks and recreation?
I'm gonna,
What are you trying to get to? What is the
Is it recreation
Is
activities?
the recreation director a potential solution to a goal, or is that the goal?
yes. No, I think it's to sort of coordinate and understand how people can use the services. And for instance, and this falls into like the communication to the public, right? When we were talking about how, a lot of people don't know how to use the town parks. And what I mean by that is, if they want to rep McCarthy, or if they want to play basketball at a gym, or if they want to walk Warren Pole, where do I park? Or like, is there someone that could oversee all of that type of stuff so that there's some sort of communication so people could understand how to use the town assets better?
At one time, we used to have a recreation way back, committee, right? And there was somebody in every park. They'd be there during Monday through Friday, and they'd have activities for the kids, you know what I mean? In other words, you'd be the park guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'd play volleyball, they'd play, softball maybe, or they'd play, now they get badminton.
Right. But I'm just wondering, like, a lot of people, or some people, I should say, don't know that they shouldn't have fires down, or bring up a grill to the, and then they get there, they see the signs, but they've planned a day, and now they're like, great, I've got my family, I've got all my stuff, I'm gonna light the grill anyways. And I'm just wondering if there's some way to control all that stuff under one person so it can get communicated out to the public, you know, like the Conservation Committee, you just added 2 more, which was in your newsletter, right? The 2 new, is that open to the public? How do you use it? Where do you park? Does it open at daylight? Does it shut down at dusk? Like, I think there's just a lot of questions about all these different places in town. We have these great resources, but how to use them?
So would you take all that stuff away from the people that have it now? Like Conservation now does that for those, you know.
No, I'm not
lands
taking it
that-
away. I want to communicate it
No.
out too.
But if you had somebody that did that, would they, how, okay, so you just want somebody to kind of aggregate all those things?
Yeah, because someone told me that they were trying to figure out how to use McCarthy. They wanted to rent McCarthy Field, and they called the schools. But then they were told, "Oh, you don't call the school; you call town hall." And I don't know how much this is true, how much it's not. You know, there's 2-3 sides to every story, right? And mine, yours, and what's in the middle. But I just wondered, like, is there a website you can just go to and click on and say, "I want to rent McCarthy Field." What does that take? How do I do it?
Is it?
I don't know what the answer is. I just know what the problem is.
So is what you're trying, is the goal to improve the parks and recreation process for the public? And we can capture a recreation director as a potential thought, but it sounds like there's multiple ways that you could.
Is it also
And I'm not trying to
facilities?
put words
Not
in
really
your mouth.
facilities.
I
It's
just
just
don't know.
understanding and use of the
Going
town
to hire
assets.
somebody is a goal, or creating a
Does it have to be
position is a goal,
structured?
or is the goal the end state of what you're trying to get to, and we look at what the different paths are to get there?
I think we have to look at the different paths, because I know the end is, people don't know, I've had tons of people, how do I get a plot at Sunny Acres? At Sunny Meadows, like,
So tell me what the goal is then, Ken, with that.
maybe some type of a communication program that explains the assets and the usage and procedures for town assets.
So you need Siri.
If she knew the answer, that'd be great.
Chelmsford Siri.
Thoughts on that, Paul?
No, I'm listening and being receptive. I'm not, this is not the debate. That's what
No, I'm not looking for a debate. I need input from you, like.
No, I think it's, and problem is it's, as Pat was kind of, they're out in different jurisdictions. McCarthy Fields School Property Athletic Director, as George knows, being on the Turf Fields Committee, he's responsible for leasing and the use of the synthetic fields. Conservation Land, Conservation Commission.
And I'm not looking to step on anybody's toes
Town
in that.
Commons, DPW, everybody's got a different.
I think it's a traffic.
I agree,
process.
so the average
Whether
person,
it's-
the average person wouldn't have a clue. That's what I'm saying, I'm not, not.
But I don't think there's any stepping on toes. I think people need
No.
to not puff up their chests here. I'm
No,
looking for an
that's-
explanation of, if you're going to rent the town field, a school field, you got to call this person.
Right,
If
that's
you're
what I'm
gonna-
saying, you need somebody to wrangle all that information together, that's what I was hearing.
Sort of like what Jim Melanson's done with services in town.
Mm-hmm.
We need done with
Right.
assets, parks and fields and recreation in town. Like, someone asked me, how do I get a kayak on Hart Pond, and can I just put a kayak in and do it?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, go look it up. And then where do you look it up? I don't have a clue where to look that up.
Yeah. No, I see the point, yeah. A lot of the recreation went to community ed, and that's where, and that, so community ed sort of schedules some recreational activities, that's why I wasn't sure that's where I was going. Like, they're sponsoring pickleball and a few other things and so forth, so I wasn't sure exactly where the goal was heading.
Things have to be a lot more structured than they used to be, you know what I mean? They gotta have a plan for everything. They used to give swimming lessons every year too at different places, you know what I mean? For 2 weeks, the guys in the Y would come up and teach. That was part of the recreation program, I mean.
Is that captured, Ken?
I think you
So
get my point.
If we go back to last year's for a minute, we have road improvement and sidewalk improvement, but another big part of that transportation part was dealing with all the truck traffic issues across town. Is that something that we need to continue?
Yeah, I have it too.
All right, so what do you have there?
I just have, to continue to review truck traffic issues with a focus still on Ledge and Swain to find out what's left there. But any other new ones, I know we had Stedman was an issue. I think that closed. I think Chief Spinney closed that one.
Well, there's still issues.
Yeah.
No, but I believe he closed.
The recommendation that we can't do it.
Exactly.
Right.
So there was nowhere else to go at that point. And obviously, we have the River Neck Road coming this way, but
I hope Dunstable and Maine don't get upset by being left off that list.
well, it's kind of ground zero, the other two,
Yeah, I know.
but they're right next to them, so
Dunstable, Maine, Ryan.
we can put them all
Whole
down.
group.
I have no problem.
May I throw another one out? I've had this thought that, sorry, especially when we're trying to fill boards and committees, and we've had a couple of cases where we have like young adults who are in college join our committees, which I think is really great. And we've talked in the past about whether we try to do something to more engage the youth in the process, in our governmental process. Like, I don't know if there's something we want to consider, either liaisoning with the high school organizations or just getting some visibility or inviting them to a meeting once in a while. But my thought was some kind of youth or young adult engagement or advisory. I forget which town it was, but either Billerica or Tewksbury Drake, I think, like established in the last year a youth advisory board. Just to keep them informed of what's important to our younger voting population.
The school committee does it, right?
The school committee does that. So I'm just going to capture the idea. We can
Yeah,
throw
I
it
think
away.
it's a good
but
idea.
But that was the thought.
Did you say the lack of volunteering amongst all ages is becoming an epidemic?
What?
The lack of volunteering amongst all ages is on a very sharp decline. You know, it's becoming a problem.
Who wants to throw one out?
Sure, I'll throw out another one. I think the CCA, with the transition that it's going through, I think we need to really be big advocates for it, and we need to, follow along what's going on there, and whatever we can do to help make that a more attractive venue, we should do. So I don't have anything specific, just advocacy and helping.
We've got to support the success of the CCA, and I guess part of our role, when we brought on the director, we were also said that one of the expectations of the board was that we had this 3-year plan that was developed by the consultant, and we want to be involved in that, or get, at least kind of be updated, so. Do we need to do anything as a board for onboarding guidance for new board members? Take what Christina does and maybe and augment it a little bit? I say this from my perspective when I joined the board. I got a book, but nobody ever really sat with me on some of the other aspects of what we do, or went through to get questions, and I didn't know what questions to ask, and then I kind of struggled when Mark came on because I didn't know what else to do to help him through that process.
Well, I guess it depends, you're talking about, locally, because the MMA does have that new selectman.
Talking
thing.
about locally, yeah. I went to the MMA thing too. I mean, it was helpful, but it didn't help me with the specific onboarding for this board.
It was helpful.
It's just a thought.
Hmm?
It's just a thought. I mean, I can put it here, we can not do it.
So I have a real crazy one. It's a little up one from there. Since I've been here, we've kind of been picking off this process didn't exist, let's fix this, let's add a new process like what we're talking about here. As I've talked to people and gone through different issues that have come up, process keeps coming up. So I just wondered if we had a goal here where essentially we asked all the department heads, and Paul, of course, but all the department heads, and we asked them to kind of take a look and do a gap analysis in their area for where processes don't exist, where it would be helpful, and where they do exist, where they could be updated, and start the process at least of making them more aware of process and that it needs to be put in place and they need to be followed, they need to be updated and so forth. It doesn't feel like there's a culture on the municipality side of the world to do this kind of thing, and I think it's important that we do have it. I mean, let's face it, if you don't have a process or you don't follow it, things happen to us like what happened to us on the sewer. I mean, it's a good example of where we lost the control. So just thoughts, because there's nobody that knows better than the department heads of what's there, what's not there. And I didn't know if MMA, I did look, I didn't see anything, if MMA had any resources around that. But I couldn't find anything when I searched. Or if there are even any benchmarks that are out there for communities that have done such. But just a thought. Yep, capital budget process. I'd like to somehow, and maybe it's just my own fault, but the capital budget process really came to light for me when the traffic plan showed up in January, but the capital budget process had kind of already been done. And maybe it's just because I was a newbie at the time, but I just feel like before it becomes in stone, that maybe would the select board or somebody get a look to,
We're invited to all their meetings.
no, I know we're invited, but when it's done, to take a look at, you know.
There's no select board representative to the capital committee. So it's the committee that takes the look and makes the recommendation, and there is no select board representative.
Okay, I wasn't asking for questions or answers, I was just asking, does it make sense before it becomes, you know, as part of a warrant article, does it make sense for that to come here so that we could take a look at it, see if there was enough rationale for all the capital projects that are there? Because all I come back to is, you know, Chapter 90 funding. That has been flat for how many years? Because it looks like, to me, that the crank was just being turned. And you don't get Chapter 90, then the funding for our roads declines. It declines against inflation. It declines against just normal cost changes. And we end up in a situation where it had gone down and we didn't look to put our own funding into the programs. So,
May I throw a related one out?
yeah.
So, and I'm looking at you, Ken, because I know you've brought this up in the last couple of years, and I think I brought it up too. Is there a goal about, broader than capital budget, but there seems to be a desire here and in the operating budget to have more visibility more frequently. And I don't know, like, do we need to define what that looks like if we want to set that as a goal? Is that a goal for you, Ken, or?
Yeah, I mean, I had made that
I-
comment that.
We're not arguing whether we're keeping them or not yet.
Right.
But do we want to capture that? Because it keeps coming up and we're not measuring it and it's not happening, so.
Well, explain it at some
Well,
point.
explain,
'cause
yeah, I don't want to.
Well, it was just, my comment was that, and I get it, I mean, Paul and I have talked about it, that, you know, we get the budget, and by the time we get it, it's a very short window before we're going to town meeting with it. And so, you know, I had made a comment, well, maybe we could do like a, you know, if everything goes planned, here's the hot items this year in the budget that we're gonna go for, or what I'm thinking, or here's the philosophy behind the budget. But again, Paul said that the window is just very short and and it's not really, do we have one meeting between when
We have the tri-board, and then we have the end of January, when it has to be presented as the final budget. Those are the only 2 times we touch it.
Right.
And then 90 days later, it goes to town meeting.
Yeah.
So the Finance Committee spends all of February, March, and April reviewing the budgets with department heads and then preparing its recommendation and report to town meeting. Yeah, it's all spelled out. And in terms of the capital process, it starts in,
November.
requests go out on October 1st. They're due the end of October. Capital Committee meets November, early December. The capital plan is presented at the tri-board meeting with the Select Board, School Committee, and Finance Committee in December. And then at the end of January, I submit the capital plan along with the operating budget. That's how it works mechanically. It's how it's spelled out in the charter, and that's how it operates. The difficulty, and I've discussed this with Ken and over the years, is one of the big components of the operating budget is state aid. And we don't know any input on state aid until the governor releases his budget about 3 days prior to the deadline for me to release the statutory budget in accordance with the charter, for me to release it to the Finance Committee and Select Board at the last Monday in January, which is, again, 3 months before town meeting. And then what happens from there, the school committee then holds its budget hearings and so forth. So it is a tight window. There's no question on that. I don't know how we overcome this. And the big challenge you're going to have this year is, with the change in governor, they actually give a new governor into, I think, the second week of February to release a budget, because it's a new administration. So basically, our budget is out 2 weeks before we even know what, and it's not just what you're getting for local aid, it's also the assessments, which are a big deal in terms of charter school assessments, school choice assessments, reimbursements and so forth, assessments. And so that can have a swing in significance. And then the same thing on the capital. You have all these inputters, and I believe the way the committee is assembled is you have the inputters coming in from the Finance Committee, the departments, and so forth, to try to assemble a plan that meets within some reasonable amount of funding requests for debt. And that's how things sort of get apportioned. In some years, the schools get more, in some years, it varies, and we have increased funding for roads over time compared to where we were 15 years ago, and we actually increased the capital budget over time. It's a tight window.
Can I try this from a different
Sure.
angle, maybe? So when the Finance Committee goes through their process from January to May, say, they're going through a process based on the final recommended budget that you are required by the charter to present by the end of January, or by so many weeks before town meeting. So my understanding is what they are doing is basically auditing that budget and making sure that they're in agreement with it, but it's not like a working session where they're, let me finish, Paul, okay? Don't shut down on me yet.
I'm not shutting
It's
down.
not a working session where there's like give and take with them in the departments. They're going through as an independent function, looking at the budget. What I think I've been hearing from Ken, and we talked about, we got an input one year from somebody on the school committee, is there a way to have more just working level visibility in terms of how the budget is progressing? Is that, so we have the tri-board meeting in December, but there's a process you go through to get there. And then between tri-board and the end of January, there's a process that you're going through to get there as you get more information from the state on aid or whatever. So Ken, are you looking for like more status or visibility or working exchange as the budget is developed, just to kind of know where we're at, or be able to contribute ideas to that, or what does it
I
look
think,
like?
Yeah, I think that's a portion of it, and more, and not in understanding and being empathetic towards Paul's issue of timing.
Right.
More of a, this is where I'm going with the budget this year, and where I think we need to spend money, and where I'm going to be focusing, or if nothing's changing and we're going static quo 3% increase, 2% across the board, then that's fine. But sometimes I feel like when I do go through the budget, I have to take last year's budget and kind of put them next to each other and try to figure out, or over the last 5 years, I know we get the year over year, but, and go back and try to figure out where's the spending changed in town, and where is.
I think I highlight all the spending changes in the narrative. I mean, first of all, most of the years, recent years, it's been level service, right?
Right.
And this year with inflation, it's going to be hard. I don't see any new initiatives coming in. It's going to be at best level service. And it's probably going to be the question is what services are we looking to
Exactly.
probably, trim if possible. For example, today I was in a discussion with DPW. We've got to put out our solid waste and recycling contracts. And I think the big answer we know is they're going to cost a heck of a lot more than what they are now. And the question is, what are we going to be able to afford to do? And what's the market like in terms of, aside from the gasoline and the labor thing, but what's the market like? We know there's probably 4 vendors who can provide it. Are they still going to be able to offer manual collection, or are we going to have to go to automated? And if we go to automated, what's that going to cost to buy carts? And those type of discussions. So
Actually, that's a good point.
Right.
So if that's where your mind is, and what you're thinking, what I guess what I'm asking for is maybe a month sooner, like, kind of a broad overview of here's what's going on, and I may need to make cuts, and if so, here's where I'm going to be focusing.
And I think I try to do that at the tri-board meeting in December, trying to look at this is an overview of what we're doing, because I don't have that picture until basically November. Because the requests go out October 1st, and then they're due back to John Souza and me October 31st, and by the time we get them assembled, it's mid-November, and at that point, you've just concluded, you're doing a tax classification hearing for this year, you set the tax rate, and then we're making a projection to at least have a discussion in December, in the next month, for the tri-board meeting. And then basically, after tri-board meeting in December, you basically get through the holidays, and then we're pulling things together
So,
in January. So it's a tight, I agree, it's a tight window, but I
so
think.
Paul, I think.
But we'll have
You might be
those
talking past each
No,
other.
no, I'm saying we have those
But
discussions.
like you just, so the tri-board is in December.
Yep.
But you just gave an example of a situation that's come up in August, and I think what Ken is saying is we might not have all the answers yet, but why don't we have a discussion around some of
I
those
don't want to give you
big
input, I just want to know what you're
parameters?
thinking.
But you will have input, because and Pat and George were on this board before, when we had modifications on solid waste, we brought them into this room before the select board. We came in here with carts, you remember we had different sized carts in the room, we went from an unlimited trash collection to 2-barrel limit. Yeah, if those things are
Where's the
coming,
lead?
they're coming, and in fact, my discussion with Christine Clancy and Christopher Haley today was, we probably got to be reporting to the select board in October about where this is going, because this could have significant concerns in terms of, because the other problem is, from the vendors, if they're getting vehicles, you got to tell them, before it used to be 6 months, you need to let them know by first of the year so they can get the equipment to, but now with the supply chain issues, we really want to get out sooner, probably November, December timeframe, so that at least you've got a chance that somebody can come in and take on the contract. So you're going to see those discussions. And again, you'll be part of that, because basically it falls from the board. As I said, those kind of macro issues will come before the select board. They have to. In my mind, they have to, because there's the only way it's going to work. But I don't know what beyond that. In other words, Ken, you said you've watched the budgets over the years. We've made essentially no new hires in what, three years? There have been no increases in positions, and given that we're heading into an economically perhaps challenging period, I don't see any. But I'll gladly bring you into those discussions, but basically, it's more going to be, what are we holding on to?
I'm going to leave this on here
Yeah,
for when
no, I
we go-
agree.
for
I
when-
didn't bring it up tonight. Just-
No, but I like
no,
that.
I'm-
It's a good idea. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave these two
I
on here
didn't-
for when we come back to
You brought it
look,
up.
to look at everything.
but I think
Well,
it
because I'm
does.
sick of reading about it every year. I mean, let's figure out what it looks like and do it. And so my thought is, while you were
Wait,
sitting.
time out there. You're sick of reading about it every year. What does that mean? What does that statement mean? You're sick of reading about it every year? To me, it's almost derogatory. What are you sick of reading about?
Because every year, we have comments made about getting earlier visibility or more frequent visibility into the budgeting process. And so my point, Paul, that was a poor choice of words. I'm not sick of you or anybody else in this room. But my point is that why don't we figure out what capital budget process early visibility or operating budget early visibility means? What does that look like? And
It's not at all possible.
what change does that mean? And if we can't figure out that there is a change to be had, then we all ought to agree that what we have is okay. Right? All I'm saying is if we want something differently, then let's define what differently looks like and agree on that. And stop saying every year we want something differently. That's all I'm saying.
Because, I mean, the capital budget committee has agendas, and they meet and they hear every single request,
Well,
every.
And that's great, but
and if
that
that's-
wasn't my point. My point was,
Yeah.
okay, if I could get it out,
Okay.
was fine, let them do their work,
Yep.
but then let us have a quick review of it so
Okay.
that we understand it, because last year, we got a review, we had a, I can't even remember it,
Right.
but we got a review, then we got the study on the roads.
Yep.
Then we got into that whole mess, and then there was a disconnect when we got to town meeting. I just want to make sure that there isn't a disconnect when we get there, that we're all on the same page. I think that there's also added challenges because of the inflationary issues that are going on, so it's even more important that we do that and understand it this year, the things we're going to have to do and the things that we can't do. And we need to all understand it personally.
I think that's
Because
well
it's
stated.
important that there's, all of us, 6 of us are sitting there in April or whenever the town meeting ends up being, we all are of a common understanding of what's going on. That's all I'm looking at.
But see, this is where I'm going to push back for a second. It's not just the 6 of us. It's the select board, it's the town manager, it's the finance committee, and in this case, it's the capital plan committee. And those are, to me, are the stakeholders in that process, and then ultimately it goes to town meeting for acceptance. And I guess what I had done is when, as I said earlier, when the capital planning committee completes its work in early December, I believe it's the following week with the tri-board meeting, it's happened for the last few years, John Souza reports the capital plan to the tri-board meeting of the select board, school committee, and finance committee. And then nothing is concrete until I submit a capital plan at the end of January to the finance committee, and then copy the select board, and then it goes to the process. So I guess what I'm trying to get at, Mark, is what is it that you're looking for to change
Okay,
in
let
that
me just go
process?
back and I'll say it again.
Okay.
After we got done with going through, we saw the capital process, then we saw the traffic, then we saw the condition of our roads. Then when we queried into that, we found out that the Chapter 90 has been stagnant for years, and there's been no changes in the budget.
But that's not true, because last fall, we went to town meeting and got $1 million to improve roads.
Last,
Prior to that, it was like.
prior
10 years.
to that,
year
it
ago from
was
now.
zeros, is
Yes.
my understanding.
That's correct.
So that doesn't seem like a process that works, because
Well, then
the
you're
prior
basic-
boards were either just elected not to do anything and allow the degradation of the roads to occur naturally and kick it down the road or something. But something happened, because you would think that you would want to at least maintain some kind of status on your roads, which would have caused you to have to kick in money from the town in order to maintain that. That's what I saw right away. The other thing, just as a side note, I've heard different comments since I've been on the board about the rationalization of some of the capital. And I don't know if it's because people forget how it was rationalized, or maybe it wasn't complete enough, but I just want to make sure, again, that we all know
What do you mean rationalization of capital?
why we're buying X, why we're buying
But
Y.
all those discussions
What-
take place at the capital plan committee. So it's not like those discussions aren't happening. Every single item on the
I
capital.
know they're happening there, but what I'm saying is let them do their job.
Yeah.
But when it's done,
Yeah.
maybe there could be a summary review here in case there's any additional questions. Rather than us.
Rather than waiting
Yeah,
until we're on
see-
town
but see,
meeting and
well, yeah, waiting till
print
town
articles.
meeting, or, let me finish, injecting us into that process, which I don't think is a good idea.
But see, how it works under the charter is, I submit the capital plan and operating budget. We wait until after the election in April, because it's that select board who makes its recommendations to town meeting in April. And the finance committee does its role between then and April.
Okay.
But Paul,
So I guess I'm
Paul,
not taking
can I-
exception or offense to anything, but the bottom line is.
So there's the charter and the compliance with the charter, and we know that, why we do that process in April. What Mark is saying and what Ken was saying is, we can still do that, but what we have the flexibility, I think, or the option to define improvement to that process, or what, let's say what Mark sees as a potential improvement to that process, which is in addition to the select board going through their recommendations in April. Mark's just suggesting, for example, before the capital budget plan, or when the committee is done, that they do an earlier briefing to the select board. And then maybe it's a faster discussion in April after the new boards have committee. But what it does is it gives opportunity, it gives earlier visibility and opportunity to weigh in. And I think that's all I keep hearing from Mark and
I
Ken.
think that's what Ken said
Earlier
about the overall
visibility
budget.
and
just-
opportunity to weigh in a little
But I
bit.
thought that's what the tri-board meetings were.
No, that's too late by then.
How is it too late, December, too late? The capital planning budget is completed literally 4 days before the tri-board meeting.
Well, I can just say that in the case of the the road situation.
Right.
We got that report in January. The capital thing was done in December.
That's correct.
There was a disconnect. Then we get this information, then you start querying backwards, and it's like, oh, it's too late, it's already in, and, you know. So that particular issue highlighted a problem for me, because I highlighted it to you a month or so later because I was pissed that we were in that kind of a situation, and how can we avoid it? I don't want to be there. I want to be all of us understanding everything that's going on. Or if there is a problem, we all get it. We all know what's going on. So that was an issue for me, especially, and the other issue was, obviously, there was a big slant towards sidewalks when all of a sudden the roads are crumbling. Well, that didn't feel right either. So it's just trying to get that information so that.
So
understand.
there's a tangible suggestion that we can consider of getting an earlier look when the committee's done with their work. So,
That's
I mean,
all.
that's just that, so that's tangible, and that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't conflict with the charter or anything. It's just an earlier look. And so, Ken, is there like a tangible example from operating budget of what that would look like? Do we get another, do we get another discussion between tri-board and the end of January? Is that what you're looking for, or are you looking for
I didn't
more?
bring it up this year.
Huh?
I didn't bring it up this year.
Yeah, you did. You wrote it, you brought it up in the review. That's why I'm
Oh,
asking.
I see what you're saying. I thought
So-
you meant tonight. I was like,
No,
Well,
you-
Paul and I kind of discussed it since then, and we went through the timeline of how tight it is, and I get it. I
guess-
don't know what the
Yeah, no,
answer is.
I know it's tight,
But
but
I guess, let's go back to the capital thing. If the capital thing says we want to replace the high school boilers, and we want to replace the, a highway, DPW truck, and we want to replace the money for roads, and we want to do door hardware at the high school, and we want a HVAC system for the library, and all that's vetted by the capital planning committee, and then they make a recommendation and vote their recommendations, and then we present those recommendations to the select board in some report, and John Souza, and he chairs the committee, that's why he does it. He presents that report. Is that what you want? You want a presentation, or what comes from that presentation?
I just want to get a review. Let me just pick right up
No,
on
no,
what you
could-
just said.
Please,
Okay?
Mark, 'cause I'm
And then
doing
we
this
go to
not-
town
I'm doing-
meeting,
I'm
and
doing
what
this-
happens? The clean energy and renewable energy group get up.
Yep.
And they start challenging and asking, well, did you look at other alternatives, rather than putting in that,
Mm-hmm.
1990 technology boiler into the schools. Did you look at this? Did you look at other options? What were the cost deltas? And it was clear to me that that didn't happen. And so, those are the kinds of things I'm thinking could get maybe vetted earlier, so that it doesn't end up being that kind of a thing. I mean, even the,
But I guess the question is, should that be vetted by the select board or by the capital plan committee?
well, all I'm saying is that if the
I think all
capital
Mark's saying
planning
is he wants
committee
a voice.
doesn't do it, maybe there's a way it could be caught here.
It's another safe check.
It's just another check, an independent look. It's not meddling.
I'm not
That's
asking
what you're
meddling.
worrying
Not
about.
what- I didn't,
It's-
whoa, I didn't use the word meddling, and I.
Okay,
and
well,
a
it's
strong
an
word to throw,
independent- yeah, well,
Because,
I'll-
because the finance committee also takes up all of the articles, including the capital budget in its hearings as well. And all those things didn't happen at the finance committee hearing as well. So in other words, there was nobody at the green energy at the finance committee hearing when they took up the articles for all the capital
Okay,
plan as
but
well.
it feels like for some of these committees, including maybe this one,
Yep.
this board, is that maybe they didn't feel like they had enough information to have an opportunity to bring that stuff up. I mean, because if it's just grandstanding at town meeting, then call it for what it is.
It's not grandstanding, and I think that's disrespectful to town meeting, Mark.
Well, then,
Yeah,
I'm not,
because
I'm
what
just
it- 'cause
saying.
what it is
then
it's-
If it's not, why did you just twist that?
I didn't
That
twist
was
that.
really,
I wasn't,
that
Mark.
was
I
really
wasn't- I'm
bad.
trying to have a
Because I'm
conversation.
saying, we're trying to, well, I am too.
Okay.
And we're trying to avoid having people get up and feel like they didn't have a voice in that process. And that's why the clean energy folks get up and say something there. So they didn't feel like they got a voice. And all I'm suggesting is that we do whatever we can to get those voices into the process up front as much as we can. And if this board could act as a quick review and see if there might be something got missed,
And
it might be
another-
helpful. I don't know.
I'm not saying it won't be helpful.
You've said something too, Mark. So, for example, if I think about the clean energy
Yeah.
example, right? Maybe having another checkpoint here would help provide visibility or whatever, but the other thing is, again, we've got committees full of volunteers, and although they have an opportunity to go to the capital planning committees and weigh in on the boiler project, probably not even paying attention to what's coming in front of the capital planning committee at that time.
That's right.
So to your point about, is there a way to avoid some of the, like, having this all come up at town meeting?
Exactly.
Is there a way to think about anticipating who's going to care about this at town meeting and maybe bringing them in? Or giving them a heads up, this is going to be reviewed on this date.
Yeah, I just don't want it to seem like we're not all
nobody pays attention to every meeting agenda.
connected. Right.
Well, that's, Mark, to your end, I mean, if you
I'm a
were,
volunteer too.
but those people on the energy, clean energy, well, that committee,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to say the name right,
Just an example.
they probably watch select board meetings, but they probably don't watch capital planning.
Right.
And if you did a review here, they may catch it earlier and say, okay, but was that considered, and show up at our meeting that night with questions.
Again,
Yeah,
I thought the most visible venue for that was the tri-board meeting. You put the select board, finance committee, and school committee in the same room, you present the capital plan. If you think coming here is additional, I'll do that. I'll tell you, I'm frustrated too, because not only that, I have a town manager information session, okay, about a week before the town meeting, and about a quarter of the people show up.
Right.
And then it's very frustrating, then show up a week later and say, well, if you
went over
had
this.
questions or information, you could have come a week ago, and
Right.
we had that, and if you weren't there, you could have came to the finance committee, and you could have
Exactly.
came to the tri-board meeting, and you could, I don't know that we can ever capture that problem in terms of the fact that people show up at town meeting and make their requests, and we respectfully handle, and I didn't, so anyway, but yeah, we'll gladly modify our process and
Well,
have.
I'm not asking to do one specific thing. I'm
No,
just,
but-
I'm trying to highlight, there seems to be some disconnect. And you're right. There are all kinds of meetings and there are all volunteers and they miss them. And then all of a sudden, we go into the town meeting and it's like, what's going on here? It's like the tennis courts for the parking lot by the police station. It's like all of a sudden, bing, it blows up in your face.
Or Freeman Lake, getting the weeds in the lake, we sit there and brought it to town meeting,
That's right.
bring it, discuss it here, discuss it there, and then a year later, when the Conservation Commission holds a hearing, these people come out saying, we don't want this. Where you been? And then they appealed the thing, and now we're dead in the water. I guess I'm saying, Mark, is I hear that and share the frustration. I'll do whatever I can. So I'm not opposed to it, I'm just trying to give you the perspective that I have,
I can't-
having lived through this process of,
I
and the
know
same
for-
thing happens on zoning, right? You sit there and have the zoning planning board hearings, discussions, so forth, and then they show up at town meeting and start moving the language of the bylaw and offering amendments and everything else, and you're like, where were you with the planning board hearing and when the finance committee discussed the zoning article and blah, blah, blah? I mean, it's the same underlying concern, and then what happens is the town meeting then goes on for ad nauseum, and then people get disgusted and don't want to be town meeting members because it goes on too long.
I guess what I'm thinking is that if the six of us at least have a common understanding, we've vetted almost everything, and even if we miss stuff, at least we know we've gone through the process so that it doesn't appear that the six of us aren't on the same page.
Okay.
That would be a big plus to me.
And I guess, I've been sitting here trying to formulate the question you posed to me about the budget. And I guess as I was trying to think of it and equate it to what I do for some of the corporations we do work for, but you know the budget, what it's made up of, and you know where the hot buttons are for inflation this year. And I'm just curious, like, okay, if and I'm not looking for dollars, but percentages. If trash goes up, 12, and this goes up, well, where potentially do you think we need to cut? Like, I guess with some insight a little bit sooner about what your thoughts are, high level, on to balance the budget.
Yeah, because we just can't keep going on like this. This is going to be a huge hit for the taxpayers in this town coming up.
So it's being able to be part of those working discussions rather than waiting till the final recommendation comes up.
And not, again, not to give input, but just so we understand where your head's at,
Yeah.
so we know where we're all driving towards.
Yeah, because you might say, guess what, salaries are whatever. What percentage of the budget are salaries?
They're well over, they're about half the budget.
You look at salaries,
Yeah.
benefits, and all that stuff. So you say salaries, it's going to be more than normal. Benefits is going up
Right.
your customary 12%, whatever they are. So then we're already at a deficit here, and I think that's what Ken's saying. So then we get more of a macro view, and where's the pressure?
Right.
It's going to start coming against projects, cash.
And I understand Paul's position, because you don't want to be too early to say, well, we're going to cut here, and then you got a firestorm on your side, and then you don't need to cut.
Right, and then you lose all credibility. It's like, it's the scare tactic every year. Oh,
Yeah,
we're-
there's sort of a political finesse that goes on with all this.
Exactly. And then the problem is the biggest part of the budget is the schools, right? I don't know the school budget because the school budget doesn't get released until my budget's done. And that's the problem. And so I don't have insight into the school budget.
Yeah, no, we know that.
Until the end of January when my budget's due. And that's the biggest challenge of the budget is that's the biggest department in the town. And that's why again, going back to I've been seeing the tri-board as that discussion, because at that tri-board meeting, we sort of give the trends, and then we also sort of say, hey, look, these are the key items in terms of, salaries, school bus contract, utilities, and fuel, and then you sort of say, okay, this is roughly and you've seen it every year, you've been through it enough, this is sort of our estimated additional revenue, these are our additional expenses, and they roughly come proportionate. So, yeah, no, I've got, believe me, because it's going to be a heck of a challenge, but for example, I asked the question today, where are we looking at for road salt this year? We don't have the number. Now, if you know road salt gets shipped internationally, I don't know the numbers, so again, but yes, believe me,
But you got a new machine coming that's going to solve some of that road salt.
they're gonna try to do a pilot on the brining stuff, so, but yeah. So, yeah, no, we'll gladly, make that as a goal about early visibility and insights. Like I said, you're gonna see them because we're into sort of unusual position right now with what's going on in the world and what's going on with inflation. So, yeah, I
Yep.
think you're definitely going to see that.
Are there any other candidate goals that people want to put up there?
Anybody have anything else left in their list?
Yeah, I do, but I'm afraid to bring them up.
No, please, don't be, no.
Paul, go ahead, you put one out, Paul.
I got one. Senior citizen property tax relief. I think we ought to, and I'm coming, we should discuss some way of providing assistance for seniors in the community. Because we know, we heard the discussion from the assessors in terms of what's happening to property values, and so.
Should I add tax classification strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a list, right? Kind of nervous to go down that road, because I know I was playing with the
Well,
spreadsheet
and we
and
can't
saw the numbers.
obligate a future board and everything, but like, I just want to.
How about procurement?
Human process.
Ask away,
Well,
Paul.
I don't know if it's a goal, but I'll just make the comment. In this section on personnel management, on this review forum, like every year, there's some of us that say, well, we don't, but by the charter, we don't have visibility into some of this, and I would really consider, like, what, is there a way to give the board more visibility? What are we doing to help grow our leadership and training, or, some of these categories that are in here without overstepping the charter bounds? I would consider whether there's anything that we can do to give us more visibility into some of this. That's my thought. You're making faces at me, Mark?
No, just in general, because I find a lot of the items that this form is requesting us to rate are more relevant for an internal manager to be rating an internal manager, as opposed to somebody that is on a board and external, that you wouldn't have and you shouldn't have oversight over that. I found some of them almost supervisory stuff that we shouldn't even be involved in, but that's what I thought, rather than getting
Well,
more
and
oversight.
I'll give a little editorial on that. When I forget when it was it the first year I was on, it was the second year I was on the board, where the review sheet was 2 pages, and I thought it was very,
It was the same as Darlene's.
yeah, it was very simple, right? And so I wanted to find something that was more concrete, more fact-based, so I just started visiting other town websites and pulling up their board reviews of the town, for town managers. So it's really stolen,
Oh, I get it.
And so if someone feels that it's not the review they want for the town, it can be edited. But at the time,
That's what I found.
I think I was the only one that worked on it, and I think we sent it around when it was finally complete, and there was some minor adjustments, and then it became it.
Doesn't mean it can't be changed.
No, I agree, that's what I'm saying, if someone wants to edit it, edit it.
Well,
But
yeah.
at the time, I think it was the only one that was doing any work on it, and it was like, yeah, they said, you're the new guy, if we want a better review, you do it, and
And as soon as it gets revised, it'll need to be revised again. That's just how those go. But, as I was trying to fill it out, after not being here for just 2 months, but being here for a year, it's just like some of the questions were just
I put
kinda-
question marks on some of mine, I
Yeah,
agree.
no, I know, I saw them. Like, things that we wouldn't have oversight and shouldn't. And there's other things maybe
All
that.
right, so the goal should be for Mark to redo the review.
There you go.
No, Mark's not doing it. Unless you want to pay my hourly rate,
Um,
be happy
Can I
to.
do it in Gulf fees?
No, can I ask a question? So we had Katie come in and work with us in a couple of meetings, and in one of those meetings, we culled down and defined like the values. Is that something that we want to look at and decide whether we want to adopt that differently, or we kind of dropped the effort with her? She was going to come back. She called it strategic planning, but really what she was going to do was go from values to goals. And that's why I put strategic plan up there, because that's really, strategic planning is a lot more than just doing values to goals. And we were just overloaded with everything else on our plate at the time. We couldn't even find a date to meet. I think we were in the midst of getting ready for town meeting and everything else. So it doesn't have to be a goal, but if you want, I can type up what we had and what came out of that meeting and just bring it as an agenda item to a meeting, and we can decide one way or the other whether we want to change the value statements. Would that make sense? I
we
just
did the
realized
work.
we never closed on it.
Yeah, we did the work.
Yeah, so I'll do that. That's my bad. I dropped it. Paul, do you have any other goals, or any board members have any other goals?
I don't want it to be a goal, but I will, if I have time, take another shot at that review and knock off the questions we did get. Because there was a couple questions where 3 question marks or 2 question marks.
Yeah. I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, if you guys want to bring a
Yeah.
recommendation forward to a meeting.
Yeah,
that's
I'll do it
fine.
with you, just to take a look.
Or we do it with a pen,
done
and
a
a
million
red pen at
times.
a table, and then I'll do it
Yeah.
and submit it.
Well, while you're doing that, I think you should also change the rating scale, because on the first page, it says the numbers mean one thing, and then in the second page, they mean something else.
Yep. Make it match.
Exactly, that does
Yes.
need to be, thanks, Pat, that does
Thank
need
you.
to be fixed.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
But if you see something, if you want to just, and
Sure.
you want to email it to me,
Okay.
and when I sit with him,
But you can't, be careful.
oh, yeah, you can't do that.
You two can work it and then bring the whole thing back.
Yeah.
Good point, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else to-
It's your, have a
Leaning
microphone,
against a microphone again, sorry.
but like snakes.
So, would you all like to go up and put dots next to your priorities? You want me to go through them and we say yes, no, maybe? Do you want to do that? I mean, one of the concerns I have is some of these are just track and continue to track, and I'm okay with that. But like, I don't want a dozen major goals, that's too many,
Right.
Yeah,
right?
maybe you
So-
could even have one that just says to track ongoing projects, and you can just list them, itemized underneath that. Maybe you could do something like that, so they're not all separate.
yeah.
Yeah, so just because
Yeah.
they're already established plans.
23 is too many?
Oh,
Well, that's why we ended up not being able to probably do what we wanted to do, so we gotta be careful. Take on too much.
So, let's take like first pass through and say.
Well, the first two can
It's a
be,
goal, it's a track, it's a
okay, so you
get rid of,
have,
or it's a come back and talk about it. Okay? This one, I vote as a goal.
Yeah.
yeah, but you can make 1 and 2 one goal.
Yes, okay. So this is a goal. Everybody agree with that? Warren Hole, track to completion,
I think the next 2 are track.
That's a
Track,
track,
track.
yeah.
until something else comes out of it, right?
Is PFAS track?
Track, another,
At this
Well,
point.
It's
yeah.
executing the implementation plan, right, Paul? And-
What, PFAS?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically the system's installed, it's just tracking,
Now we gotta take data and see what happens?
right, yeah, so I think it's a track,
Okay. This would be a goal. The ARPA part? I think that's a goal.
yeah,
yeah, I think it has to.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to the goals. The road and the improvement sidewalk plan, to me, those are goals.
Yep. But is
You
that
probably
one
make it as
goal?
one goal, I think you probably make it as one goal, roads and
Can we-
sidewalks.
Yeah, can we put them together?
Yeah, reduce the number of goals to activities.
It's a
There you go, you
stroke
get
with a
down to
marker.
3.
The town common improvement execution, is that a track?
Yeah, I think so.
You okay with that, Pat?
Mhm.
Okay, wasn't sure. to keep this, to me, that's more of a goal. We got to take some action to figure out what we're.
Well,
have a
jump to the next
discussion
one
about.
first.
Okay. This one?
Yeah.
Is this part of it?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, 'cause I think that's a, economic path forward is a
Yeah.
real quick fix, I think. You just, I mean, reaching out to the chair of
It
the.
could be a subset of the other one.
Yeah, that's what I,
So if we're going to keep this, this is a goal, right? The two together?
yeah. Because it's kind of like any committee that starts to fall off its rails should be, you know, monitored, corrected, and/or shut down if it's
Yeah.
not corrected.
To me, this is a goal.
Yep.
Can we come back to these two? I think that's a meatier discussion. It's some kind of goal, but the communications program, if we do this, this is a goal. It's more of a. Huh?
Yeah, that's fine, just,
Or do you, what are you suggesting? You want
well, that's a specific thing Ken wanted to get addressed, so why don't we just leave that, however you want to do that. I just, one of my communications things was more, I think you and I talked about it, is more around DPW projects, you know, getting that communication out, but I don't think I want to
this is different.
take it up higher, you know.
If we do this, I think this is a goal, right? It requires looking at options and deciding. Oh, and I can say if we do these, this is a goal. Some version of this is a goal. And that's all we're doing here. This one to me is a goal, because we have more work to do. This would be a goal if we want to do it, right? The CCA would be a goal. People didn't seem too excited about this. Should I take it off?
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of an individual thing, you know, when somebody new comes on, you know, somebody could reach out to that person on an informal basis,
All
and
right, I can delete it. We gotta.
And if someone said, no, I want more than that, really, that's
Yeah,
just it's something that Trish sends out
Right,
to
nobody's
the
gonna
board
stop
members with
them.
more description.
Department process gap analysis and improvements. I mean, Paul, this would fall on you.
No, that's a goal.
Because this is it's
a
an
big-
operations
yeah,
That's
thing.
kind of an important goal.
Yeah, say it's a goal, it's not a track.
Because the one nice thing, well, the one,
Okay, if we do this, it's a goal.
Goal.
the interesting thing about that one is that goal allows you to become proactive and not reactive, which is what we all kind of strive for, right? We don't,
Yep.
we hate when we find there's a gap and then we look like
Yeah,
we got a
and
problem and a
try to fill
nightmare.
it, yeah, in advance.
Can I clump these two together
Yeah.
It's a goal.
and agree that it's some kind of goal?
Yeah.
Some type of visibility goal.
These two would be goals, right?
Together. They kind of go hand in hand. I
really?
think.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to do citizen property tax.
But it has nothing to do with, no, it has nothing to do with tax
because it's not
classification.
going to
It's
change the
different.
amount.
No, but
They're
it
two
has to do with,
different-
It's tax strategies.
yeah, they're both
Okay,
tax
Not
strategies.
Okay, all right, okay, yeah,
necessarily
okay. But
classification.
they're
Yeah.
two distinct.
Yeah, it's two-way, but it's all part of the tax formula.
Yeah, okay.
And so-
Excise tax
and this would be
analysis, or
involved.
I don't know what you want to call it, but.
Right, we've been at this for 90 minutes, so,
You want a motion? No, just sure.
well, we can keep going and digging a little more. Or we can go back and talk about this if you want. I can get it kind of summarized in a table like I did last time, and then at our next meeting, we can go through and say, okay, how are we going to measure it? Who's going to do it? By what date?
Would you count, Paul,
You still got
14?
14, yeah, you still have
And
14.
It's like
we still have
13,
the
but
fle- we
you're
still have
3
the
of these
flexibility
might
to-
be only selectmen.
What's that?
3 of these might only be selectmen,
Okay.
or select board. so-
But some of them are shared, most of them are shared.
I hope so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, there's 14 of them, you know.
Well, we may have to kick one or two out.
Yeah, we may
Yeah.
have to call this down a little bit.
Yeah,
But
and if we decide to, then we will. But it'd be better to get another look at it, I think.
all right. So is there anything more you want to do tonight, or want me to put this together for, I can put it in the next packet, we can put it on the agenda at our meeting on the 8th. Do we have time on the 8th, Paul,
Yeah.
to at least start?
So that means you're going to have the matrix again with the goal, and then how measured, and then by
Yeah, so
when?
what I-
No, I'm just trying to figure out what the end product's going to
What
be.
I was going to do is take this and
Yeah.
format it in
Yeah.
a table like we used last year,
Yeah.
something like that. I'll fill in the words as best I can remember the conversation,
Yeah,
but
something up a little.
you'll have it in the packet so everybody can review it, and we can get together and change how it's stated, talk about how we want to measure it. I keep upping the mic, I'm sorry. And then who's responsible and by when we think we can do it. That's what we, or we.
But at that meeting, Paul, if there's ones we need to knock off, we'll knock them off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this isn't the final list yet. This is, or we can keep going if people have energy to start going through this on flip chart pads. It just seems like we're hitting some fatigue here.
Yeah, I think I'd rather, do like what you said at first, and let us have a chance to look at it, individually, and come back with ideas on what might be added
We
or
have,
not.
we have 2 meetings in August to get it in shape if we need to use both, so. You okay with that, Paul?
Yeah, no, and I'm
What
just,
sense of-
because I'm just trying to absorb everything that's there.
Take a picture with your phone.
No, no, I'm just, in terms of the theme, I'm trying to look at the commonalities and that's all I'm trying to look at, or what are we missing? I'm more question about, are we missing anything before we head off for the night?
Well, we could add one or
Yeah,
two.
we can always,
Yeah.
I want to
instead of
for
taking them
next
off,
time.
we can add.
If you think they're helpful, honestly.
We can dig down into your wardrobe choices, anything we need? Anything we want to do?
So, it is 7:31. I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, we're adjourned.